A 48-year-old man, Peter Hibbert, was arguing with his girlfriend in the middle of the night, wound up shooting his girlfriend in the head, chest, and leg, killing her, and then walking into the living room where her daughter, holding a 1-month-old baby, and her boyfriend were sitting, and said, "I just killed your mother and I'm going to kill everybody else in the house." When I got to the scene less than 6 hours after the shooting, I did 20 to 30 interviews and none of the neighbors had heard anything. Unbelievably, toward the end of my shift, I ran into one neighbor who pretty much knew everything. Covering any kind of crime story, anything that's breaking news, as a reporter, you're gonna have to figure out a lot of what's going on at the scene in person, because when we get the call for these kind of crimes, there's not a lot of information, especially like in this case, gunshots in the middle of the night. You would figure a lot of people are gonna wake up, or at least covering these kinds of crimes over the years. Just door knocking people first thing in the morning after an event like this. They'll come to the door groggy and say, "Yeah, of course, I heard the shots." And they'll start telling you what happened. In this particular case, in Brownsville, Brooklyn, no one heard the shots. Not one person heard any noise. I was kind of stunned when I first got there and I saw the cops still working the scene early on Sunday morning. I ran up the stairs. It was an attached house. So say the murder happened in this door, I ran up the next staircase. So they're sharing a wall. And I knocked on the door and rang the bell for a good 10 minutes before anybody answered. And finally, a woman's voice came behind the door and said, "Who is it?" And I said, "It's Kevin Sheehan from the New York Post." She's like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Oh, I just want to know if you heard or saw anything that happened last night." And she said, "No, why? What happened last night?" And I said, "Well, your next door neighbor was murdered and there was a bunch of gunshots. Did you hear any gunshots in the middle of the night?" She said, "No, I didn't hear anything. Thank you." And that was it. So you figure, okay, that's one neighbor who doesn't want to talk. That's not abnormal or, end of the story. So I went up in both directions, that side of the block, went across the street, knocked on every door on that side of the street. I must have spoken to 25 or 30 people. No one heard any gunshots. All the questions we had, there was no one who could really answer them. So continue to work this scene for an unusually long time. Usually within 2 or 3 hours, you can find out enough information that you can answer most of the questions that someone would have about this particular crime scene. In this case, I worked it for 6 hours straight, never taking a break, never stopping, and was getting to the point where I was about to give up. And this man in his 30s came out of a basement, came walking across the street, and he was talking to one of the neighbors. And he was like, "I was the only one out here. I don't know where all you guys were. At 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody was here. I was the only one out here." And I ran over to him quickly and I asked what he had seen and what he knew about this. And he knew everything about it because while it was happening, they got on his cell phone and called, I believe the guy's name was Roger, the father of the 1-month-old baby. And he called Roger and said, "Roger, what's going on in your house? There's a SWAT team out here and they got their guns all pointed at your house. What is going on?" And he said, Roger just said in a very hushed and muffled voice, he was like, "Shh, I can't talk, but I'll call you later." And just hung up. Of course, we confirmed every single bit of this gentleman's account with the NYPD, who, once you have the story, will confirm information that you've collected during your reporting that you're going to publish, just to make sure that in case you got the wrong information, you don't publish the wrong information. So they were able to confirm Peter Hibbert came into the room and told her, "I just killed your mother and now I'm going to kill everybody else in the apartment." They were able to confirm the nature of the schism, that it was a boyfriend-girlfriend, a domestic fight, but they weren't going to volunteer those details to any member of the media, not during their investigation. Most of the crimes that we're covering of this nature are terribly violent. They are frightening just to hear about, but usually they're a lot easier to find out what happened when you get there, because there are people who are related, there are people who are involved, there are people who heard something, saw something, and you can take little bits from all these different people and put it all together and get a sense of what's going on. That was not the case here. Nobody saw anything. Nobody knew anything. There was one man. He was the only one around. And due to the nature of the time, it was 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. So if you like getting the behind the scenes information on stories we run for the New York Post, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content.